Good morning. It's Thursday, September 14th, and I want to tell you something that's related to a great event in our history, in the history of the world, I guess it is. I'm going to talk about the Dunkirk evacuation. I'm talking about this as an introduction to another event which I'll get to in a little while. The Dunkirk evacuation, codenamed Operation Dynamo, and also known as the Miracle of Dunkirk, or just plain Dunkirk if you couldn't remember all those other words. It was the evacuation of more than 330,000 Allied troops from the edge of the harbor in Dunkirk, which is in northern France. Now, these troops were trapped on the beach by the German army, and they had nowhere to go. They had been forced into this corner, and they were fighting bravely to stay alive. And on top of the German army, which had them pinned down on this beach, the Germans also had planes flying overhead, the Messerschmitts, doing as much damage as they possibly could to the troops on the ground. But the British had a British Air Force that was wonderful, and they came over and they kept the Messerschmitts at bay. They kept coming. The British Air Force kept coming and retaliating and forcing the German Air Force away from the troops that were trapped on the beach. But the problem still arises how to get all these men off the beach. And the only way to get them off the beach was to send ships. And the British had X number of ships, and that certainly wasn't enough to move all of these men off the beach, because there were 300,000 men stuck on this beach. And what happened was civilians with boats joined the British. They came from all over, little boats and big boats, all kinds of private crafts. They came and they rescued all of those troops on the beach. It was one of the most miraculous events leading up to World War II, or in World War II. So why am I telling you this? Because we had our own Dunkirk. It shouldn't surprise you that it happened on 9/11. Because what happened that day in the smoke-filled areas all around the World Trade Centers, with the buildings crumbling around them, people headed down to the waterfront, down to where the ferries were. And the ferries were there. And people were climbing on those ferries like crazy to get out of the onslaught of the crumbling Twin Towers. And there weren't enough ferries. There weren't enough boats. But civilians recognized what was going on. And many, many civilians turned up with their own boats. And they came and they rescued all of those people that were hanging over the edges. And some people were already in the water in Lower Manhattan. But this was an armada of private vessels that came there, and they did exactly what they did at Dunkirk. They kept coming and taking people off the edge of Manhattan. And this is something that I never thought about. I never read anything about it. I never thought about it. I couldn't imagine this. But I can recognize the fact that this was exactly what should have happened. Many, many civilian boat owners joined in this. And they said they couldn't look away. They had a vehicle to save people, and they were going to do that, no matter what the consequences were. And this one guy was telling the story, and his wife was saying, "Why are you going?" He says, "I have to go. I can't look myself in the eye. If I have a way to help these people, I am going." And there was another gentleman who was the moderator of this video that I saw. And he was an elderly gentleman now. He must have been a young man at that time. He explained all the things that were happening around him. The net result of this, with the ferries, and with all of these private boats, that nobody has ever heard this story. It hasn't been made into a movie or anything that I could remember. So we had wonderful people showing up. And you know how many people we rescued? 500,000 people were taken off the edge of Manhattan on 9/11 by this armada of boats that we assembled. Now it's true that these boats weren't facing the same thing they were facing at Dunkirk. There weren't planes flying overhead and shooting at them or anything like that. But this was not an easy mission. There were people that had to climb a wall, climb fences, jump over, because this is not a sandy beach. There weren't people standing on the beach. They were standing at the edge of Manhattan, and there were railings and everything, and they had to get over that and get to the boats. And there were many people already in the water, so those people had to be pulled out of the water. It's a heroic task, and I don't understand why more things weren't written about these people. These people were heroes, unsung heroes. I don't know what they get out of this thing. I don't know if any of them got anything from this courageous event. And they weren't looking for anything, and I'm just saying that somebody should have done something for these people. And maybe they have done something, knowing what goes on in this country. Maybe they did do something for these people. Maybe they were recognized in some way, shape, or form. They certainly should have been given keys to the city at the very least. And they give them lifetime passes to all the museums or whatever they want to have. Because these are heroes in our midst. People who have no real experience in saving lives. They jumped into the fray. Imagine that. Imagine taking 500,000 people off the edge of Manhattan because of what was going on with the Twin Towers. Now, we talked about all the other heroic events that happened during those times, but I don't remember one word about the Armada. Let's call it the Armada. The Trade Center Armada. I like that, because that's what it was. It's a group of people that got together and they came and rescued people. They built their little boats and got them off the beach. So I don't know why this doesn't go down in history right alongside Dunkirk. They rescued over 500,000 people from the edge of the waters. Think about that. Think about the amount of people that were on the edge. It's amazing. It's a great story. It's out. There's a video online. I've taken the liberty to attach it to the email that accompanies this rant. So if you have 11 minutes to spare, you can watch it. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.